Hello, fellow friends. So, this episode is going to be a fun one. I'm going to discuss what I would think to be my top 5 favorite movies based on Greek mythology. I know some people don't put a lot of stock in these movies because they say it's not true to the myths, and yet the myths are ever evolving and ever changing, so that's not really a good argument as a reason of why not to watch these myths, because to me, Greek mythology movies introduce a whole new generation, and each generation that sees them, it introduces them to the Greek gods, gives them that exposure and experience, and it leads a lot of people to Hellenic polytheism. So I never discount these movies because a lot of people, they learn from watching these and they want to know more, and that's awesome. So I was trying to think of what would I consider to be my top 5 favorite movies. And I think that it would be these right here. Because I've seen a lot. I've seen some good, seen some made for Sci-Fi Channel bad, and these are my top 5. I may do another 5 in the future, but these would be my 5, I'd say. So we're going to start at number 5, and I'm going to start at, we'll start with number 5, and I would say that would be Immortals from 2011, starring Mickey Rourke and the pre-Superman Henry Cavill. So from Wikipedia, it says that the plot of Immortals is about, quote, before the dawn of time, of man and beasts, immortals waged war against each other in heaven. The victors declared themselves gods, while the vanquished renamed themselves and were renamed the Titans, and imprisoned beneath Mount Tartarus. The Epirus bow, a weapon of immense power, was lost on Earth during that war. In 1228 BC, King Hyperion of the Heracleon searches for the bow, intending to use it to release the Titans to get revenge on the gods for failing to save his family from disease. Hyperion captures the Virgin Oracle, believing that she can use her visions to find the Epirus bow and find its resting place. So believe it or not, I actually went and saw this movie in the theaters when it came out. And believe it or not, I actually fell asleep during the movie in my original viewing. So needless to say that this movie has grown on me over time. When I originally watched Immortals, I was pagan, I guess you could say, but I had no real connection to the gods, especially like I do now. I wasn't a Hellenic polytheist in any way. So what did I like about this movie today? It has to me now, it has a good story with an interesting villain and a likable hero. I think Mickey Rourke does a really good job playing King Hyperion, and Henry Cavill makes a really good Theseus, who we can always root for. The scene that continuously comes to mind when I think about this movie is when Hyperion kills a priest by lighting him on fire, and without fear, he even challenges the gods to do something about it if they don't like him killing their priest. So speaking of which, I really enjoy the look and portrayal of the gods in this movie. They have a unique costumes design, and it's unlike anything I've ever seen before in any of the Greek mythology films. They're given a unique look, and they don't just copy and cop out the white togas like they do with every Greek mythology movie. To me, Luke Evans does a fantastic job as Zeus. I always love the take of Zeus in this movie, where he's not the old white bearded elderly man, but he's young and in fit shape. Even though you can tell that he has those years behind him with maturity, but he still looks young. So a cool side note is that this isn't Luke Evans's first time on Mount Olympus, because he played the god of light and truth, Apollo, the previous year in 2010 in the movie Clash of the Titans, the remake. Alright, so number 4 is from 2014, and that is Hercules, starring Dwayne Johnson. So Wikipedia says that the plot of the 2014 movie is about, quote, Hercules is the leader of a band of mercenaries comprising the spear-wielding king-turned-prophet Amphiaraus of Argos, the knife-wielding thrower Articulius of Sparta, the feral warrior Tydeus of Thebes, and the Amazon archer Atalanta of Scythia, and his nephew storyteller, Aeolus of Athens. With that said, this movie sounds more like a Conan the Barbarian movie, more than a story based on the tales of Hercules. The film could also be deemed as a controversial in the whole aspect of Greek mythology and in a polytheist point of view, because it kind of takes the wind out of the sails of Hercules by saying that his amazing feats were accomplished practically. Which also it kind of puts a unique spin on the story, that the 12 labors are overblown stories, and the success was achieved due to his not being a demigod, but rather because of the brains that he had and the help of his friends. One particular scene that comes to mind is when Hercules kills a man with one blow. Or does he? You see, he actually picked up a broken arrowhead, and with it in between his fingers, he punched the man in the forehead, and that's what actually killed him. And the entire movie plays like this. Like, you have Cerberus. He isn't this three-headed Hades hound, but in fact, it's just three dogs that Heracles mistakes as three-headed dog when his eyes are blurry, and so on. It's just a unique look and a spin on the Hercules myth. And if you can't tell, the being unique kind of thing scores big with me. And the movie is just overall fun. So I'd say that number 3 is another Hercules, and that is the 1997 movie. And yes, I'm talking about the Disney film, starring Tate Donovan, Danny DeVito, James Woods, and Rip Torn. And Susan Egan. Can't forget her. So Wikipedia says that the film is about how in ancient Greece, after imprisoning the Titans beneath the ocean, the rulers, Greek gods Zeus and Hera, have a son named Hercules on Mount Olympus. And while the other gods are joyful, Zeus's brother is jealous. We're talking about Hades, and he plots to overthrow Zeus and rule Olympus. So that is definitely the film in a nutshell, and it is hilarious. I can watch this movie over and over and over again, and I never ever get tired of it. I laugh as hard every time as I did the first time. And I love James Woods' portrayal, and I think he does an incredible job as Hades. He's wonderful, sarcastic, nastily jealous, and his minions are just as funny with that slapstick comedy that you would find in an old Three Stooges skit. I love everything about this movie, and having a kid makes it that much easier of a choice to choose, and I know she won't complain. Alright, so we're in the top 2, and number 2 is going to go to 2004's Troy, starring Brad Pitt, Orlando Bloom, Sean Bean, Eric Bana, and Peter O'Toole. So you guys know the story, but Wikipedia says that Paris is having an affair with Menelaus' wife, Queen Helen, and smuggles her aboard the homebound vessel. Upon learning of this, Menelaus meets with Agamemnon, his older brother, and asks him to help take Troy. Agamemnon agrees, and as conquering Troy will give him control of the Aegean Sea. Agamemnon has Odysseus, king of Ithaca, persuade Achilles to join them. Achilles, who strongly dislikes Agamemnon, eventually decides to go after and seek the advice of his mother Thetis, and she tells him that though he will die, he will be forever glorified. So whether or not you like Brad Pitt or agree that he should be cast in the movie, Troy is compelling, beautiful, and so well acted and written, and this is my number 2 spot, so you couldn't expect me to say anything less. Even though when I read the Iliad, even when I read that, I picture Brad Pitt in my head as Achilles, now that I've seen this movie. I really enjoy the portrayals of how close Achilles is with Patroclus, and the relationship between Achilles and Odysseus. I love Sean Bean. He does a great job as Odysseus, and the biggest flaw of the movie is how no gods are physically seen in the movie. But isn't that the way it's supposed to be? Because in reality, I mean, you don't really see the gods with your physical eyes. But speaking of the gods, I also really love Peter O'Toole as King Priam and his devotion to god Apollo. We get to see Apollo's temple and some of the ancient rituals performed in the movie. Alright, so this is number 1. And my number 1 was a 2-part miniseries that came out in 1997, and that is The Odyssey, starring Armand Asante as Odysseus. The Odyssey. I mean, if you want to hear me gush about a movie, just get me started on this one. I don't know whether it is nostalgia, the gods portrayed, or just the overall film, but this is just my favorite mythological film, hands down. One of my favorite movies of all time, actually, and I can always put this movie on any day and still enjoy it. So, do I even need to go into a plot? Because I know you guys know this story. So, Odysseus with starring as Armando Santi, or backwards, you know what I mean? The king of the ancient Greeks, Odysseus, he's king of the great kingdom of Ithaca, is called to his service in the Trojan War after the birth of his son Telemachus, much to the dismay of his wife Queen Penelope. Odysseus is worried that he may not be able to return and tells Penelope that she should marry and be remarried by the time Telemachus is a man if he does not return. So he goes off to fight in the Trojan War and has obstacles after obstacle trying to stop him from returning home afterwards. And like I said, you guys know this story. And the story of Odysseus is timeless, and Armand Assante does a fantastic job as the lead. Much like Pitt, to me, like Pitt did with Achilles, Assante is Odysseus to me. And talk about your grand adventure, sword and sorcery, sword and sandal kind of film. That is very close, though, to the actual Homer story. It's probably it's definitely to me the closest a movie has gotten to the actual Greek myth. And you get to see gods and monsters, the way the gods are portrayed are classic. The whole toga thing, but it works. And the film probably features my favorite portrayal of Hermes, the god Hermes, in any other film. And I remember watching this. I think the first time I saw this was in, I think it must have been literature class in high school, and I fell in love with this movie. And like I said, you get me gushing on it, and I can talk about this movie. But I won't. I'll keep it short, and that would be my top 5. And like I said, mythology movies hold a special place, and I'm always on the lookout for more. And like I said, I've seen some classics. There's some I'm looking for that I still want to see, and I may do another top 5 in the future. So we'll see where I go, where this goes, and go with the gods, guys. That's the main thing, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.